Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode. I am excited to talk to you today about 5 healthy things. And I say healthy because we think they're healthy, but if you aren't sleeping, they actually aren't healthy. So you probably don't want to be doing them if you're having trouble sleeping. Now, when I suddenly couldn't sleep normally in late pregnancy and after I had my son, for the first time in my life, until then, I had always been a great sleeper and loved sleep and probably taken it for granted. I thought that if I exercise hard and tired myself out, that I would sleep better. And many of my clients tell me the same thing. Maybe you have too, right? Like you've tried to exercise for a long time, really strenuously, hoping that you'll be tired. And if you've tried this, you've probably noticed that it doesn't work. And when I was struggling with sleep and tried this, I would sleep even worse when I did strenuous exercise. And at the time, it didn't make any sense to me. And it was very frustrating because I had always been a big exerciser. I live in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, in a mountain town where I would go on 5-hour mountain bike rides and I would ski tour in the backcountry all day. So strenuous exercise was a part of my life. So, and I always slept great after exercising. So I thought it would be the same when I had insomnia, but that wasn't the case. And so now that I've learned about how stress affects the body, it actually makes sense to me why doing strenuous exercise to try to sleep isn't helping. And to explain this, we've really got to talk about stress first. So, we do think of stress as bad. And if we define stress as a condition when we perceive that the demands exceed our personal or social resources, so pretty much things feel like too much, that is what we think of as stress. When we feel overwhelmed, we call that stress. And this type of constant stress is bad for our health over time. However, not all stress is bad. There's also good stress. So, for example, if I feel stressed before speaking at a conference, that's actually good. I mean, first of all, it means that I care about how I perform. And those stress hormones are actually going to help me do a good job because they're going to give me energy. They're going to help me focus. So, there is good stress. And then there's also something called hormetic stress. This is the kind of stress that makes us stronger. So, a great example of this is exercise, right? We stress our muscles and they actually get stronger because of that stress. So, again, it seems like strenuous exercise is good for us and would help us sleep better, but here's why it doesn't. If you can't sleep normally, your body is already stressed, right? So it's stress from not getting enough sleep. It's also stressed from the imbalances in your body that are keeping you from sleeping normally. So if you can't sleep, you have some combination of these imbalances in your body: inflammation, too many toxins, an unhealthy gut, your liver isn't functioning properly, you have hormone imbalance or neurotransmitter imbalance. Now, those are just some of the basics, and inflammation can have many causes, but usually a number of these things are going on in people who can't sleep. And so all of those imbalances are also causing stress in your body. So you have the stress of not sleeping and then these physical imbalances. So adding more stress, even if we think that it's healthy in quotation mark stress, such as HIT workouts, for example, that high intensity interval training, that's going to stress your body even more, which is going to make it even harder to sleep. A lot of times, you aren't sleeping. One of the most common reasons is because your body's releasing cortisol at night when it shouldn't be. And a lot of times we're stuck in fight or flight, right? Like we're stuck in that stress response. And again, that can be from mental stress, but it can also be from these imbalances in your body. And so your body's constantly releasing cortisol to deal with stress and inflammation. So you're constantly feeling wired, even though you're exhausted from not sleeping. So you're already stressed. And some of these healthy activities that I'm going to talk about are adding more stress or causing your body to release cortisol even more when what we you really want to be doing is getting out of fight or flight, getting into that calm and relaxed state. So let's get into these healthy, in quotation marks, activities that can stress your body even more and make your sleep worse. And I'm calling them healthy because you've probably read and heard that these activities are good for you. And they are good for you if your body's healthy. They do create stress, which makes your body stronger if you're already healthy. But if you can't sleep normally, you aren't totally healthy. Even if you care about yourself and you eat well and you exercise and maybe you even take supplements, there's no way your body's healthy if you have a symptom of any kind and a symptom such as not sleeping well. So, let's get into what these activities are. So, I've already hinted at one with the HIIT exercise. So, strenuous exercise. Exercise is definitely part of being healthy, but strenuous exercise for more than 30 minutes at a time or a day is going to stress your body out. And we know this because cortisol goes up after 30 minutes of strenuous activity. So if you aren't sleeping, I actually don't recommend HIIT workouts and other strenuous workouts for more than 30 minutes. So CrossFit, whatever it is, right? And I don't recommend endurance training, such as long distance running. Say you're training for a marathon. You do not want to be doing that to your body if you already aren't sleeping well. So, or less a day is what you want to focus on. Now, another thing that is talked about a lot lately is doing intermittent fasting. And intermittent fasting can be great for weight loss, for regulating our blood sugar levels, and for preventing diabetes. And many of my clients actually have blood sugar issues that intermittent fasting can help with, but I don't recommend that they do longer fasts until they're sleeping better. And this is from everything I've read. I've read multiple books and listened to many podcasts about intermittent fasting, and it says not to do it if you aren't getting proper sleep. And usually, intermittent is referring to more than 12 hours of fasting. So it's getting into that 14, 16. Some people fast for even longer. So that's what I mean by intermittent fasting. So I do want to point out that I do recommend 12 hours of what's called digestive rest every day. I recommend that for almost all of my clients. And this rest helps stabilize blood sugar. It gives your body a break from digestion, and it gives your body a break from releasing insulin, from having that insulin response. When that's happening all the time, if you're eating at all hours of the day and night, you're snacking throughout the day and having multiple meals, then every time you're doing that, your body's releasing insulin. And over time, you can become insulin resistant, where your body doesn't respond well to insulin. And I am amazed recently of how many of my clients are struggling with blood sugar issues, and they are a totally healthy weight. So it's, of course, it's easy to see if someone is obese or overweight that blood sugar is an issue for them, but this can happen in people of normal weight. And so, yes, although I don't recommend doing longer fast if you aren't sleeping, I do still recommend having the digestive rest and not snacking between meals and eating really smartly to stabilize blood sugar. And I've talked about that in a previous episode. So intermittent fasting is great if you're healthy, if you're sleeping well, and not if you aren't sleeping well to go for these longer fasts. Now, another healthy, in quotation marks, activity I don't recommend if you aren't sleeping well is hot yoga. And I'll tell you, I love hot yoga. I feel depleted in a good way. I feel super light after going. I feel strong. But this activity is really stressful for your body, especially if you're doing like typical hot yoga is a workout, right? You're getting your heart rate up and you're also in a very hot room. So I know for me, I'm sweating profusely when I'm doing hot yoga. So I don't recommend this if you aren't sleeping well. Now, another recent healthy, in quotation marks, trend is cold water plunging. I feel like there's a lot of talk about this right now. And yes, it's supposed to improve cardiovascular function, which is great for a healthy person with no symptoms, right? Again, but it does shock the body. It causes an increase in body temperature and heart rate. It creates a stress response in your body. So again, that's a good stress if you're healthy. It's too much if you aren't stressed, if you aren't sleeping well. So I suggest not doing this until you're sleeping normally. And then the last thing I would say, and maybe this isn't necessarily healthy, but I would say restricting calories and dieting. I mean, I never recommend this anyway, but doing it while you are not sleeping well is especially stressful. And what's going to happen when your body thinks it's starving, and this is what happens when you start eating fewer calories, significantly fewer calories than you need, then it releases cortisol. And so that is, and it's going to do whatever it can to preserve energy. So it's going to slow down your metabolism and it's going to create that stress response in your body. And when your body releases cortisol, that's actually going to tell it to store fat, right? It's trying to protect you from starvation. So a lot of times restricting calories, um, it doesn't help with weight loss in the long run because your body wants to survive. And so it's going to protest by making you hungrier and hungrier and putting on more weight in the future. But as far as sleeping goes, it's also stressing your body. And so when your body is stressed and inflamed in general from anything, it releases cortisol. And when your body releases cortisol at night, that's going to wake you up and make it really hard to go back to sleep because cortisol gives us energy. It helps us concentrate and focus. It increases heart rate, blood pressure, and body temperature, right? All of that is helpful if you're being chased by a bear in the mountains, but not if you are dieting or intermittent fasting and not sleeping well. So, really, the way to sleep better and honestly to lose weight is to find out what's stressing out your body and address those things. And again, usually it's inflammation, it's toxicity from diet, from liver function, and your gut. Those are the most common things I see as to why people aren't sleeping. Now, I want to add one thing too is that technically the first step to sleeping better is that you have to believe that you can sleep better. So first you have to actually believe that it's possible. Because otherwise you're not going to take the action, you're not going to commit to things that are going to help you sleep better. And I want to tell you that I totally believe it's possible for you, no matter who you are. And this is why. We as humans are meant to sleep. We have evolved for tens of thousands of years without not needing to spend a third of our lives asleep. It is something that is so critical for our survival and health that we are meant to sleep well. Our bodies need it, our brains need it, is what we're meant to do. And so a healthy body can sleep well. So you have to believe this first. And then if you want to improve your sleep faster, it's going to help to start becoming the person who sleeps well. And this is true even if you haven't been sleeping well in months or years or decades. And I want to explain why. So if you think about it, everything that was invented in the world existed in someone's mind first. So Edison had never seen a light bulb except in his mind. He had no proof that it would work, but he made it happen. The Wright brothers came up with the idea for an airplane with no evidence that it was possible, but they brought that to life as well. So the idea always comes first and then the reality. So to sleep better, you have to believe that you can, even if there isn't evidence to prove it. So, what can help to do is to imagine your future self who has no problem with sleep, right? Who sleeps well. What do you think? What do you feel? What do you do? And then start doing, thinking, feeling those things now. And what this does is it tells your brain that you want to sleep so that you can do these things. So you want to start becoming the person who is a good sleeper ahead of time, and reality will catch up. So, really, the way to sleep better permanently is to first believe that you can and to act accordingly. And then the second step, you still need to find the hidden health issues that are keeping you from sleeping normally. And you want to make sure your mind isn't sabotaging your sleep as well. So, those are really the keys. Now, I am adding a new segment to this podcast that I'm really excited about, and I am taking questions from listeners. So I'm going to answer Haley's question from my Facebook group today. I have a Facebook called Sleep and Insomnia Help for Adults. If you want to join, please feel free. And if you have a question you want to ask me to answer on this podcast, either in this Q&A segment or I might create an entire episode about it, then you can email me, martha@thecompletesleepsolution.com, and let me know what your question is. So Haley in my Facebook group recently asked, she can't fall asleep, but her mind is clear. So this is an interesting question because a lot of times we can't sleep because our mind is racing, right? And that's usually from cortisol or adrenaline coursing throughout your body at night when it shouldn't be. But her mind is clear. So it seems like she's in this kind of more relaxed state than other people when their mind is racing. So what could be happening actually is that her cortisol could still be higher than it should be at bedtime. And so her circadian rhythm could be off. It's not high enough to cause this like obvious stress response, but it's high enough to keep her wired. So what would really be important is to look at her cortisol pattern and see if that is happening. Is cortisol slightly elevated at bedtime? Is that what's keeping her awake? And then, of course, I always want to know why cortisol is high at bedtime. So that's like the next step. But testing for cortisol and the pattern would be key. But there can be other reasons too why she's not sleeping. So a couple possibilities are hormone imbalance. So if estrogen is low or progesterone is low or testosterone is high, that can lead to not sleeping well, but you're not having a cortisol response. So that could be happening. And this is true for men and women. Another thing that could be happening is mineral imbalance. So different mineral imbalances can lead to not sleeping well and not being able to fall asleep at bedtime. So those are also things that I would look into for her and anyone else who might be having the same issue. All right. This has been a pleasure talking to you this week. I am curious to hear your questions, so please feel free to email me. And if you want more help with your sleep, if you want to get to the bottom of your sleep issues, then you can book a consultation with me. We'll talk about what's going on with your sleep, what's going on with your health, and how the Complete Sleep Solution program works so that you can start sleeping better as quickly as possible. All right, I will talk to you next week.